Hey everybody, welcome back. I'm Jason with Bent's Woodworking. This week I'm going to show you 5 different joints that are easy for anybody to do, and you don't need any kind of special tools to do them. With that being said, I will show a couple of different techniques to show you that there are multiple ways to do it. I will also talk about each one of these joints and what the benefits to each one of those joints are. And number 5 is going to be one of the ones that I've been getting a lot of questions about because I just use it on a project in my shop. So let's go ahead and get into it, and I'll talk about the first joint. Okay, so the first joint that I'm going to talk about is just a simple butt joint. And a butt joint is a technique in which 2 pieces of material are joined by simply placing their ends together without any special shaping or anything like that. And so essentially you're just gluing up the end grain of something and you're placing it against, as you can see here. Now, that's a very common joint when everybody first starts. It's kind of the go-to, but while it's not a super strong joint with nothing reinforcing it, it does give you the opportunity to do different techniques like you see here of adding plugs, which could be a very cool contrast. Also, you can reinforce it by using pocket hole screws, which is a very common technique. And lastly, you can reinforce these types of joints with something like dominoes, dowels, biscuits, and essentially what you're doing is instead of just having end grain glued to another surface, you're now having something else that has more surface area, in this case a domino, that is going to help hold that together. The next joint that I want to highlight is a rabbet joint. And a rabbet is simply an open-sided channel or recess along the edge or across the end of a board or panel. What you see me doing here is setting up a sacrificial fence and using a dado blade to basically cut this rabbet to the desired height and width that I want. If you want to find out more information on how to do this technique, I'll leave a video link up in the corner right now. And keep in mind that you do not have to use a dado blade for that technique. You would really just have to make multiple passes using a standard kerf blade. You could also go to your router table or use a handheld router to cut a rabbet using one of these bits that you see here, and this is just a rabbeting bit. And it does a very good job, it leaves a very clean cut, and is very, very useful when you need to do this style of joint. The next joint I'm going to talk about is the tongue and groove joint. And tongue and groove joints allow 2 flat pieces to be joined strongly together to make a single flat surface, and is very common in the flooring industry. However, it's also very common in the cabinetry industry because tongue and groove is an excellent technique to build doors for kitchen cabinets. What you see me actually doing here is cutting my stiles and rails to have tongue and groove so I can assemble a door. Tongue and groove is an excellent, easy option for this. Now, like I said, you can do it on the table saw, which if you want to find more on how to do it at the table saw, I'll go ahead and link a video now. But you can also use one of these tongue and groove router bit sets. And this just makes the process extremely fast and extremely efficient in the event that you have a lot of doors to do. If I'm just doing one door, table saw works just fine. If I'm doing a lot of doors, router table is what I choose. The next joint that I want to talk about is the dado joint. And the dado joint is just a slot or a trench cut into the wood and is, again, very, very highly used in cabinetry, but it does have a lot of other applications. And there are multiple different ways that you can do this. Here, I am demonstrating using a straight bit and a router with an edge guide. And this is an application where I'm using it for a panel in the back of a cabinet. And then you can also go over to your table saw, and if I have long dados that I'm trying to do, if I don't want to use a router, I can just use my table saw fence, and in this case, a dado blade. Or if I have thin pieces that I need to cross cut, I can simply use a miter gauge, and again here I'm demonstrating it using a dado blade. The advantage of a dado blade, obviously, is that it cuts the dado very quickly, and you can do multiple different sizes by simply adjusting the dado, and it's a really good way to get dialed in to ensure a perfect fitting dado. And last but certainly not least, one of my favorite joints, and that is a finger joint, which is a woodworking joint made by cutting a set of complementary interlocking profiles in 2 pieces of wood, which will then be glued together, thus creating an extremely strong joint. Now, with this joint, as with any of the joints that I've showed you today, there are multiple different ways and techniques in which you can do it. You can do something simple like this, which is just me taking scraps out of my shop and a miter gauge and creating a finger joint jig. And if you want to learn more about this specific jig, I'll go ahead and leave a link to the YouTube video up in the corner now. You can also get something like this, and this is an Incra iBox, and this kind of takes the guesswork out of it and can be dialed in extremely precise, and after a little bit of setup and a little bit of a learning curve, you can make perfect finger joints or box joints with this device. Or go one further, and this is my absolute favorite way to do this, is I also have an Incra router table, and the Incra router table is set up to do things like this effortlessly. And as you can see here, the reason why this is my favorite technique to do this is because I can cut multiple pieces of wood at the same time and ensure that everything lines up and matches perfectly. And now, to be fair, this is definitely the most expensive route and definitely not a necessity, but I just wanted to show you some other techniques. And the cool thing about it is not only can you do finger joints, but you can do something very similar with dovetails. Okay, everybody, so that's all I have for you in this week's video. That was 5 basic joints that anybody can do with very minimal equipment. I'll go ahead and leave some affiliate links down below to any of the different tools that you saw me using in this video if you want to go find out some more information about those or purchase those for yourself. So if you find yourself constantly reaching for some pocket screws, or you're always pretty much just using a butt joint and you want to try some different joints, try some of those other ones that I highlighted in the video, and they're all very easy, and you'll get to try something new. If you have any questions or comments, please feel free to leave them down in the comments section below. And if you're not following me on Instagram, go over there, check me out at Bent's Woodworking, and you'll get to see what I'm doing on a daily basis. Also, feel free to send me a DM there, and I'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have. So like always, get out in the shop, try something new, and I'll see you in the next video.